right. Hello, everybody. Seeing some familiar faces as always, which gets me excited. See some newcomers. Nice to see everybody. Welcome to the Moovs webinar. As always, our schedule will be to allow the first 30 minutes to have a discussion for everyone who's made the time in their busy days to attend. And we'll go over any questions, comments, concerns, workflows, whether it's Moovs related or not. And then at the end of the call, we'll go over any of the updates that we have that are coming soon to the Moovs software in terms of our exciting feature developments and product updates. And as for everyone to know, the Moovs webinars are recorded. We post everything to our Moovs YouTube channel so that then we can share this amazing content that we're creating together with the rest of the transportation operators all across the world. We've had some issues of, I guess, YouTube flagging some of our videos for cyberbullying. So we don't know what we've done in cyberbullying. So we're trying to get a hold of them, but I think it might be Jay with his, videos. I think Jay, you're just cyberbullying the gang today. So maybe Jay, tone it down a little.
Anything I need to know about this one?
Well, you mean my tone of voice?
Yeah,
so
you see it all yesterday on that trip.
Yeah. So cool. Well, yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. Let's get started. So
hey, Amir, I got
yes.
one.
Let's do it, Joe.
Workflow related. Hey, when you make a reservation, it says like when you do it on your phone, at least on my phone, I don't know if I do it on my computer, but it says add trip, and then when you add trip, it's all blanked out. Can we do another highlighted underneath the add trip and just do a round trip for quick flow? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like this. Let's see real quick. So let's look at my screen, Joe. I just started sharing. You're saying like when you click into here.
Yeah, right there, right underneath. If you could do a round trip, and then that way you could like when you do a single trip, and then have an option to do a round trip. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'm thinking out loud, Joe. So are you usually adding round trips from scratch, or are you going to be adding a return trip to a trip?
Round trip, like for a client going out and then coming back in.
Okay.
So
yeah, I'd be curious.
I had just noticed where it says add trip, but the only thing is when you click add trip, it's not like the round trip where it reverses everything. So I was thinking if you had that option. So
yeah. So maybe I think that's definitely a good one that I'd be curious real quick for operators that are doing round trips today. Would you guys say a majority of your round trips are created like as a round trip, or do you usually add the return trip later?
No, they usually a lot of my clients, they send me a text and say, here's my outbound, here's my inbound. And so I do it like that. So it's just an option. Okay. I was just thinking, when you said flow, I was thinking maybe that would be a quick flow to be able to just click that. You can add a trip because it may be a different location, right? So you do add trip, and then that way you can put maybe a different location. But if it's a round trip, you click round trip, and then it just reverses everything, and it's just quick, boom, boom, boom. So that's kind of the way I was thinking about it. So
cool. No, I love it, Joe. I think we already have some responses in the chat, the same as you, that it's at the same time. So I'll send this to the product team, Joe. We'll see where we can get in terms of expected release date. I've got a couple ideas right now. Like maybe we can add something here where we have, you have hourly in one way. Maybe there's like a round trip option you can click, and then that'll make it easier to just like tell the product you're going to be creating a round trip, which then means, the workflow will be a bit easier for you, Joe. Yeah.
And also, I know you aren't going to come out with it, but the dynamic pricing in accordance to the trip type, we need that. Cause I was able to save the deal, but I had so many reservations come in that were like, for instance, the Dallas Cowboy game here recently. A lot of people wanted to book round trips. and obviously when they do that, it doesn't do like the minimum hours for some reason. So, but I was able to convert it to either an hourly or bump it up to make it worth my while. But
Yep.
so I had to turn the round trip off because people were booking that for the game. And obviously if we had the dynamic pricing for a particular run type, I could have put game 3-hour minimum or whatever, 6-hour minimum, blah blah blah. So
Yep. Awesome.
Okay, thanks, Bert.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for starting us off as well. Awesome. Well, yeah, just was reading the chats. Jose, thanks for confirming as well. Let's we'll definitely look into that as a product team. How can we make creating a round trip easier? I know today it's a bit more of a manual workflow where you have to create the one way, then add the return trip. So yeah, that's something we'll be able to add as an improvement to the product. Cool. Anyone else have questions, comments, any workflows?
Yeah, Amir, this is Jay.
Jay.
I have a question regarding an invoice. When I look at the invoice, it shows that the payment succeeded, but the payout date's still showing pending. This was paid out a week ago or paid a week ago.
Perfect. So
is there a lag with some credit cards not paying out?
So let's take a look, Jay, just to make sure. So you'd created an invoice,
right?
Sent it to one of your customers,
correct?
And then this invoice was then paid by the customer, right?
Correct, by credit card.
Yep. So then we can show everybody here what we're talking about. So Jay had created an invoice, and actually you can send it through email here, and a client can then open the invoice and you can get a copy of the invoice. So if you click copy and then open up a new tab in your browser, you'll be able to see the invoice. And then Jay, you mentioned that someone ended up paying through credit card and you haven't received the payout yet.
Correct.
Got it. So what I would recommend, so this is a great workflow, is if you go into your settings, and we have the payouts here by status and the breakdown. Do you see anything here in terms of a payout?
Not for that amount, no. Wait a minute.
And then it might be bundled, right? Because sometimes you have multiple charges.
Actually, it does show a payout date or a transaction date, but it does not show, or wait a minute, it does show a payout date of 9/15, but I have not seen it hit my bank account.
What does it say for status? Does it say paid?
Yes.
Awesome. So if you don't see it, why don't you just reach out to us separately? Let's take a look.
Okay.
Maybe there can be a million things, whether it's if you have different bank accounts set up, if you adjusted it. Let's take a look at that together later.
Well, I'll double check it because it does show a different payout than the amount of the invoice. So it obviously it's taking out the fees.
Yeah. So it should just match this number in your bank account. And then this is the reconciliation. So if you want to take a look at that together, we can later, because I know it's like we don't, it's personal information. So let's look at it together.
Hey,
Awesome.
Amir,
Great question, Jay. Anything else?
Thanks.
Yep. Hey, Sean.
Hey, good afternoon, good morning. So I had a question. When you hit to directly send a quote or an email, has there been any thought around it, or is maybe there's functionality and I haven't seen it, to be able to put a bespoke message in there, from us as part of the email?
Yeah, actually, coming very soon is I can just go ahead and just show you this now. I was going to save this for later. We have a feature that we're working on, Sean, for reservations, where we're improving our send emails. I think this has been requested quite a bit, given why now it's been one of the highest priority tickets we've been working on. I'm loading it up right now, and I just want to, I'm going to show you here. If you give me one sec. I'm going to show you what we're building. Yeah, so just to go over, Sean, exactly what you're saying is that, for example, in reservations, you have send reservation, right? And today, there's not much you can do besides just send an email to the booking contact. So the team has taken on this feature, and we're building out and releasing this actually in one of our next 2 releases. I want to say like mid-October is where we're hoping to see this update. And in this update, this is going to change the functionality of this send reservation email button. So what it's going to look like, and pulling it up right now, is you'll be able to select and the email you want to send, and on top of that, you're going to be able to add a custom message, Sean, which is going to be something that's amazing for every operator. And also, you're going to be able to send the email to multiple contacts, which is also a huge feature that's been requested quite a bit for contacts that are, part of like affiliates or travel agencies. You're going to really love it. So let me just go ahead and pull the feature up here and show you, Sean. Can you see my screen, Sean?
Yep.
Yep. So as you can see here, you're going to click the send email button. This is what's going to come up now, Sean. And you'll see here, you'll have different interactions with the send email modal, we're calling it. And as you can see here, you have the decision to choose between reservation email, price summary email. And then as you can see, you're going to be able to adjust the to and CC of the email, just like you do in your email products today, like Gmail, Outlook, Yahoo, AOL. You'll be able to add multiple to contacts, multiple CCs. They can be in the product as contacts. They can also just be new emails, as you can see here, that are not in the product. And lastly, you're going to be able to add a message here, Sean, that's custom written by you.
That would be nice to have for invoice as well. When you create an invoice and save it, then you have to go back and search for it, open it up, and then click send invoice. If you just had a button at the bottom of it when the invoice was completed, you could just send it at that point.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's perfect, Amir. Can you
Awesome. Thanks, Sean.
can you pick, is it either or can you pick multiple?
One. Yep. It's one at a time for now.
Okay.
And so like you could send the reservation email to like, I don't even know what the limit is, but it's a lot, right? Like enough, I think, for operators where, yeah, you just like don't have to keep changing the booking contact. And then again, like this custom message, right? Like, I know a lot of times operators have asked about this feature, which we're thinking about, but like, when the payment is full paid, we want the email to say this, right? Well, now you can just go and send an email and then here, like, your reservation has been paid in full. Thank you for your service, or whatever you want to say can be said here. And then in that email, it's going to be like, just like in all of the clean designs that we have, very easy for that customer to understand that email custom message from, in this case, Callahan or Amir's limousine service.
Yeah, no, that's great. And given workflows, it's, we usually send those separately anyway, whether it's, around the trip booking or the cash flows based on the trip. So that's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Sean. Awesome. Opening it back up. Let's see. I saw a question in the chat. Amazing. So here we go. Jose, I'm going to just read what Jose mentioned here. I know he's in a loud place. So Jose, I appreciate you typing the question. Using the times, AM and PM is a lot trickier on the phone. I've had numerous customers call me to switch AM PM because they choose the wrong run. So, you know, and he mentions about big fingers, and I've made this mistake a few times. Jose, I know that this gets brought up every webinar, so I'm not gonna, you know, not address it, but unfortunately it's a system wide issue of redoing how the whole system does the AM PM selectors. So it's not something that we're working on now, but I can tell you by early next year, all of time and date pickers and moves will be readjusted in a way that can be adapted by every operator, because we have what you're saying, right, is very true. We have other operators that choose the time zones. We have other operators that want 24-hour military time. We have other operators who like to type in the time. So there's like, the way I would frame this is there's like 10 to 20 problems that we're thinking about in this new, how do we, you know, rewrite the date and time picker that we've selected in our first version to where in the next version, it's the best version for all operators who have that current problem. And then again, like you can choose for you if you want 12, you know, AM, PM, military, or if you want to type in or select, etc. So it is something that I believe by early next year we'll be redoing.
Yeah, Amir, this is Farhan. So
Hey, Farhan.
I'm actually talking about Jose with his question today. I actually just had a reservation last night. They booked for 7:10 p.m. last night, and they actually needed a transportation at 7:10 a.m. So they were calling me at 7:10, like, hey, where's my driver at? I'm like, oh, I was like, let me check the reservation, you know. It was supposed to be for AM, not PM. So, you know, they had to make other, you know, things to get to the airport right away. It was just, I think they're getting confused on that form, you know, when they're checking out, especially for the, you know, when they're putting I've noticed like, just like testing it myself, it can be very daunting and confusing, especially for like, you know, somebody that's trying to do it quick on their phones or on, you know, on their laptop or, you know, whatever device they're using. It could be very tough to use, you know. And then you know, she selected PM instead of AM. Here we are thinking of 7:10 p.m., you know, and we got it all scheduled and she's calling at 7:10 a.m. And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm like, that's crazy, you know. So we had to apologize to her, you know, and she's like, this is my fault, obviously, because I didn't do it on my own. But I feel like we need to maybe look at the same thing that like when you go to calendars, like in Apple, like calendars, do some type, because it's like very simple and small, where you pick your date, time, when you like when you're doing something like on your Apple, like, you know, devices and stuff like that. I feel like it's so easy to choose, easy to scroll, easy to pick date, time, AM or PM. I feel like we need to kind of mirror that maybe into Moovs, because, you know, obviously they've tested it and, you know, and they've done like a great job with it. It's just so much easier, I feel like.
Yeah, and then it's funny. One of the things you'd be surprised is the current time picker we use was developed as Google's time picker, not what they use for like their specific calendar here, but for a lot of their Google products globally. Like the time picker that we're using is developed by them. But I agree. Everyone has issues with it, so I don't know why Google doesn't do anything about it. But here, for example, like you said, here's Google Calendar, right? And you know, you like, this is an option, right? Like, what if you give your customers this option, right? And then if they want to change this, right, then they could change it to like, because how often are customers booking 12:13, right, PM or AM, right? So then you can make it easy for them. Go ahead, Joe.
What I've noticed, Amir, if you make a reservation in the morning for a PM, it's going to be AM, and if you make a reservation in the PM, like after 12 p.m., it automatically for an AM, it's going to convert to a PM. You know what I'm saying? So anytime you're making a reservation within the AM zone, all the reservations are going to go automatically to AM. You know, unless they physically pick PM. You know, So like if I make a reservation for somebody that's coming in at 7 p.m. and I make it in the morning, it's going to say it's automatically going to go to 7 a.m.
Mhm.
So
Hey, Mir, do you have like the Apple Calendar on your phone? I mean, on your laptop? Maybe mirror that. Like, I feel like I've used that a couple times in like Apple Calendar, and it's just the way they got it set up. It's a lot more smoother. I feel like when you add like something, say if you add, it's just small and simple. You know, like just pick quickly. You know, you put in you type it in, and you're done.
Like
And
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that format as well, with like what they call a spinner or a dial, rather than that analog where you have to touch the screen. And, you know, if you're going for like 913, you're hitting 912, 914, you know, it's just, you're constantly trying to get that exact number.
Maybe this analog is a better option, like the Apple's got it set up, you know. It just maybe mirror what it is on the laptop, you know, and then mirror the same thing like on the phone.
On the phone. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
or what about this, Mir? What about for instance, the way you have drivers if they have a conflict, right? Because of the time. What about like this gentleman here when he said when the client booked and she had a 7 a.m. flight, obviously she put her flight information in, and if she would have put PM and it would have said, oh nope, you have a
That was yeah, absolutely. That was a problem. And I noticed that she did not put in her flight information, or I would have noticed that. So she just put to the airport, you know, she put it in obviously like manually to the airport address. So she didn't even put the flight information in the departing flight. So that was the issue.
Yeah.
I agree. I had that same problem 10 minutes ago. It said 1 a.m. and the airport that he was flying into doesn't do anything past midnight. So I had to call him, and sure enough, he accidentally hit AM and not PM.
Yeah. Okay, this is good. I mean, do you guys, like, as a team here, do you guys have is there a strong preference for your, like, at least I think for customers, it's where I think we all agree, like internally, sure. But like more importantly, it sounds like our customers are making mistakes and we want to solve that issue first. So like, you know, again, is there a big difference between having them type these in, whether the Apple Calendar way or having like pre-selected? Like I lean towards this a little bit because I think it's a little easier for someone to like just see 12 a.m. and then be like, no, I want 12 p.m., you know?
But I think, to be honest with you, when you're using devices and stuff like that, you don't want to scroll through a whole 24 hours. You know what I mean? Of like, you know what I mean, time. It's the way Apple's set up, you know, you just type in your analog, it's like more analog. So when you select the time, your keyboard pops up, you just put in the time, you know what I mean? Like, it is so much easier. I'd rather do that than sitting there trying to scroll through, you know, 13 hours just to get to like, you know, 3 o'clock or something like that, or 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So
I've got it.
Yeah,
I would have to agree. The Apple is way cleaner.
Okay. I love it. This is super important. Yeah. Let me, what I can do is I'm going to put in like a special request to see with our engineering team if there's like a fix just specifically for this time, like input for the customer app. And then, like I said to Jose earlier, maybe all these other things that we want, like we're gonna solve, but maybe it's, you know, maybe there's a way to solve this specific issue right now for AM PM, because like everyone here has already had an issue with it. That's already enough to be like, we should take this seriously. So let me see. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
You know, I agree with what everyone's saying, right? I see it as two things. There's the ease of use, right, which is, you know, customer related, but then there's the risk that comes with having the difference between AM and PM, which can be a real problem as far as service goes. You know, so like I think a great check would be, you know, I mentioned before, you know, would be, and you must have something on the back end right now that is triggering the adjustment to the start times based on the flight arrivals, right? So a quick check against the flight they've input versus the time that they've inputted would be really helpful, because it would, if we miss it in a quick review, we wouldn't have to wait until whatever time triggers that start time, right? And we can plan and dispatch accordingly. If that makes sense.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I love that. Let me just go real quick. I got to figure out how to clean up my screen. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here's something that I'm thinking about. Let me see if you guys are on the same page here for everyone that's experiencing this issue. So on the booking tool, so everyone that's had this issue when it's flight related, is it pickups or drop-offs?
Mine has been pickups.
Because if it's pickups, it's better, because the only thing with drop-offs is we already get, or let me just make sure, because I'm pretty sure we don't, do we require it for drop-offs? I forget now. Let's see. Yeah, we do. Okay, we do. I know the one thing, like we have a lot of operators and we're thinking about, this is another issue, right? Is that a lot of operators don't like that we require it on drop-off. We do it now, so it is what it is. But like, some customers just are like, why do I need to provide this? But again, like this is something that's, I don't want to dwell on now. More importantly, I definitely think that's a good feature request that we could implement pretty easily, team, because what we just said, for example, right, is if we have like any flight, right, whatever it was, and if it actually registers, right, and then there's like a flight time to the flight, and then the customer puts in a time, we could do a check, right? Maybe we can figure this out. Like if it's 3 hours, like if the pickup time is like after or we can figure it out, right? Whatever it is, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but if it's unrealistic, right, like with a certain time period, and we can figure that out as a team as we do product development here in our user research, we can put a banner, like someone clicks next, and then like imagine a warning notification comes up to the client, like, hey, warning, your pickup time and your flight time have a, you know, like foreseen time difference or whatever. Would you like to still proceed? And then now we can start getting helping customers fix their own issues before they confirm it. What do you guys think about that?
I think,
would work good.
I think it's great. And I agree with the other gentleman that it's the pickup times, right? Because those are the start of the trip times are driven by the pickups and the airline's arrival versus, backing into a time to start a trip for a drop off where, they built in some time there to be able to get to the airport and traffic and such.
Yep.
What I've noticed, my passengers, that when they don't want to put in the airline and stuff, they'll just hit the address bar.
Exactly.
And they're just bypassing the airport altogether. They'll say that they're going to the airport, but we don't have any information.
Exactly. And it's a good workaround, right? And it's tough to say, like, do we require it, right? Because we don't want to, because you could lose customers that way. Sometimes customers don't have their flight information. I know sometimes when I book, right, like I don't want to get that information, or I might not have it in the time of booking. So it's always tough, but hopefully, I mean, one of the things I'd be curious around, Ed, would be like, how often is this happening, right? Because then that means it could be a bigger issue, or is it just certain times, certain customers?
Well, where it becomes a bigger issue is when, like where I am, the airport takes a good fair amount SFO.
Yeah.
So, either you have to charge SFO fee on everybody, or you have it, split just on airports. But if they do that workaround, the company's losing money because ultimately we have to pay it if we collected it or not.
Yeah, so one of the features on that note that we're thinking about, Ed, wanted to get your thoughts on this because it's still early. We've gotten that feedback a few times. What would you think is if like an idea of moves that came across a lot of operators, and I totally know this problem, is that airports have fees, whether it's drop off, pickup, or both. What if we were to build like dynamic pricing, like meets zone-based pricing? So like if you have zones, let's say like airports, or to Joe's point, maybe a stadium, and then we could increase and decrease pricing percentage-based or dollar-based based on those zones. Do you guys Does that help you? Does that not solve the problem in terms
I
of
like
airport?
that idea. Because I would rather not charge everyone that I pick up, airport pickup fees or drop-off fees. And, or sometimes when there's like, we've got the Super Bowl coming up, as well as Waste Management, Phoenix Open, and Barrett Jackson's. And the time to pick somebody up is increased simply because of the amount of people there and trying to find them. So I'd like to be able to charge them a dollar amount going to that particular event or to that venue.
Exactly. So like, and that's great idea, Jay, is that like Ed might do it year round, right? And then Jay might do it like based on knowing like the Phoenix airport is going to be a complete disaster during the Super Bowl, like week before, week after. So we're going to increase our base rate. And then also, Ed, you could add the like increase every day of the year, add $10 to every trip that goes to and from SFO airport.
Yeah, I think right now we are. That with the tolls, since tolls went up for us $14, airport fees charging us $15 each way.
Wow. So yeah, I think that like would this be something that would like be a solution to the problem, like the way that you're seeing it today?
It would be a solution. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a lot more work on our end to set it up. Compared to it just automatically, if an airport's name gets put in there, it's, goes to an airport ride and applies it. That would be a lot easier on our end. Will the other way work? Yeah, it'll work. It's just, that would be a lot of work for us to go to every airport, try to map out the little area and do all the things that it needs to do to get that fare, but it would work.
Smart. No, smart. I mean, like, I'd be curious now, because I'm enjoying this, like I always like, and I hope everyone here, please express your opinions. What if Moovs did it for you, right? Like, because we could integrate, right, all of the airport fees nationwide, right? We know what the airport fees are, and then we would just apply that for you for all airport to and from trips, right? Is there like a downside to that?
No.
If you do that, you'll have earned your wages for the month.
Yeah.
So I hear, and you and I have talked about this one-on-one, Amir, and we're not that special, right? But obviously what's best for the masses. From our side, what I talked to Amir about was the fact that we itemize the fuel surcharge and the tolls and the airport pickup fees for here at Logan, where most of ours are at. It's just for the pickup. So what I had talked to Amir about was being able to apply it as an itemized price on the pricing, as opposed to having it put, via dynamic pricing, having it put into the base price. Given our model and given what our clients expect, I'd be curious to hear what folks have to say about that. And maybe it's not a concern with given your pricing model, but for us, it's a little bit of a concern that we would probably not use the dynamic pricing and continue to put in, on a trip by trip basis, the pickup fees based on the way we're doing this here.
I would like to see it not in a base or in dynamic, because it states exactly what it's for. To our customers, so they don't think that every ride has that fee, and that's what our base is. I think that's what you were asking.
Yeah, that's what I'm referencing, and we try to set ourselves apart from our competitors a little bit with being transparent about our pricing. And if you go onto the site and you ask for a quote, we can itemize it, as opposed to a lot of sites will give the base cost and then they'll add in all the all the extra ones later, and then we tend for competitive reasons, but we tend to offer a better rate. So it's our base pricing is really something that we want to keep static again, and to be visible with whatever additional charges are, especially the ones that are a little more fluid, such as fuel surcharges.
I agree. I mean, we did our fuel surcharges, on a percentage. So it's not in the base rate. But our airport is, because we don't want everybody, to be honest with you, knowing that we're right now, it's the only way we can do it is charge everybody an airport fee.
And is that based on your incurrence of that? Yeah, I mean, we're just
Correct.
talking, right? So is that based on your incurrence of that fee? Are you paying in and out to the airport? Okay, so that's the difference too, right? And this is what makes it, challenging for Moovs, Amir and his team, because we all do it a little bit differently. But I'm just speaking to our needs, and and again, Amir and I had this discussion, but I just was curious how other people are doing it, especially on the desire to have it as an itemized charge versus something that would be in dynamic pricing that would be put on top of the base price.
I would love it what Amir said, that it would automatically calculate it and put it in. That way it is separated out for the people to see. And then we're not charging everybody the fee.
Right. But I think, and tell me if but I think, Amir, what you're discussing and what we had talked about for dynamic pricing would be to include those based on trip type in the base price, correct?
Yes, John. And I think to be honest with you though, is my mind changes more than a goldfish because of our customer feedback. So I think obviously so far 2 of 2, and I just kind of put something together. I'm not a designer here by no means, but maybe everybody wants it done this way, right? And we don't have if all our customers are happier, that if we built a feature that automatically adds airport fees as a line item versus base rate, and everybody, is going to be ecstatic about this, that's how we would move forward, right? I think obviously it's still very early in this idea, but in just like anything we do, Amita and Tyler lead our product team. We do extensive amount of user research in everything that we do, from researching the concept to even implementation of the product usability. So, this could be the first version of it. And the idea would be, we would just apply it to all rates as a line item. And that's that, right? I think that could be a solution. But again, curious if anyone else who does airport trips has an opinion here. Let's see.
Yeah, John, I agree with the early late trips as an itemized piece to that as well. Again, I have some of this is selfish because it's applicable to us, but I would love to hear what people have to say, so that, Amir can go one way or the other. And then, from our side, we can adjust accordingly.
So I personally think that what we're talking about, the airport fees, the early late fee, obviously, we apply that with our trips, if it's after 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. early, late night, early morning fee, the airport fee, obviously per trip, it's a drop off fee and a pickup fee. And I think most of that should be given to the operator. So when you go into your your settings, to your vehicle settings, you should be able to add that as each operator as your fees. If your airport fees are, $5 per, drop off, $5 pickup, you should be able to edit that into your, per vehicle, or, into your settings per operator, not just, it shouldn't be just general. It should be just individualized. Same with early morning, late night, early morning fees. Same thing. It should be, where it's in your fees, where you can add that into each vehicle maybe, or to your, one of your pricing tools, where you can add $15 for a late night fee, or $20 for early morning fee, or whatever. It gives everybody the opportunity to, manage it on their own, instead of you managing it through the one app.
Yep.
I mean, I
I'm just,
like the dynamic pricing. I'd put early fees and late fees in the dynamic pricing. That way the customer, like, quite frankly, they don't even see it. I mean, they see the increase, I guess, but but they wouldn't even know it. And if you go into the BPM, you can see that it's been added on there.
yeah, I guess, Fawn, are you using the dynamic pricing at all?
I am not actually. I'm just using the
Okay.
regular, enable automation. I'm not using the.
Yeah, because I
Yeah,
think
use
this,
that dynamic
is,
pricing. It's awesome.
yeah, like this to me, again, like, and we obviously feedback is helpful here. We try to get as much feedback as we can, but the more that everybody speaks up, the better. Like, this is how we solved, for example, like early morning fees, right? Where it's like, you have a dynamic price rule. You set it for the time of day. So let's say 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. And then you can choose days of the week. So in this case, every day of the week. And then what you can do is like increase or decrease your base rate. So let's say in this case, we're going to increase, and then you can do dollar amount or percentage amount. So in your case, let's just say you do dollar amount. So add like what, $50, $20?
Yeah, $20. Just said $20 per. Is that per hour?
Per trip, for
Per
the
trip.
total amount. Yeah.
Okay. So I would say.
And then you can,
You good?
and then you apply it to any vehicle, right? Or one or two. You can do each. You can even do a dynamic price for per vehicle if you really wanted to. But in this case, we'll do all of our vehicles, right? And then here it is, right? And then here's like what you're going to create. And then now what's awesome is once you activate it, now the product will auto apply the early morning fee when you do automated pricing, right? So like if I go to the booking tool now, right? So watch, I'm going to refresh. I'm going to be a customer here, and I'm going to build a trip, right, for an early morning coming up this weekend. So let's say at 3 a.m. and then put this in. Next step. So you'll see here, like, you see here how this is what the customer sees, right?
Oh, breakdown. Yeah.
But there's no breakdown for early morning, right? You'll see, so then they'll choose the vehicle. They'll be like, this is awesome, can't wait. Right, I'm gonna just go through this. Click reserve. Cool, I'm a customer, I'm happy, right? Now I go back to Moovs, and this is awesome. The product team built our BRA calculator. So if I go back to Moovs here, and this reservation that just came through for the 24th, right? And this is important for operators who do base rate automation. You're going to be like 124.55 for 3:47 a.m. Like, oh man, like, is this good? And then look, you can click this. Check this out. I love it. Oh, okay. I see what happened. Zone-based pricing plus the increase. I love this product, right? Like, it tells you what it's doing for base rate automation. And then now you can, right? And now you can adjust, right? Up to you to be like, you know what? I don't like that on my party buses, I did 20. I should redo this, right? And you're like, okay, cool. Right. So then you can go back to the rule, right? And then you kind of like yeah, exactly. Edit, take the car out.
The party bus out. Boom.
Take the party bus out, create a new one for party bus, right? And then now you become like, you're the creator here. So
you're like American Airlines, heavy, expensive on the weekends, cheap on the week.
Again, and this is the challenge. And and I'm open to the consensus and obviously respectful to what you're trying to do, Amir. I think John and I are aligned a little bit from a pricing perspective. So for example, anything that's thrown into the base rate that we don't want on the base rate is going to impact our payout as far as gratuity to the drivers. We do a flat 20%. The other piece to that, and John referenced this, is for those early jobs, we give all of that money to the driver. So we would end up having to back that out if we use base rate, if we use dynamic pricing and ultimately an adjustment to base rate. So again, it's just a consideration. It sounds like we're throwing everything on the table.
No, it's good.
John, I'd be curious if it sounds like that's a little bit in line with how you guys are doing your pricing and itemization as well as paying your drivers.
Yeah, so let me just then, I think if I understand this correctly, which is definitely, I think at the end of the day, Farhan, you brought it up, and this is something that we always do believe in, is customization is the key to success, because everybody has different perspectives based on their markets, their vehicles, and just being a business owner, right? And so we don't, and our belief is like, we want everyone to be empowered, right, through Moovs. So customization is key. I think what you're saying, Sean, and rather than getting like, instead of getting unison on this, I think it's more around like, how can we create, if I'm understanding correctly, how can we create a more detailed driver automated payout that can take into consideration some of these line items that you're mentioning, right? So like in your case, Sean, if it's you're paying the drivers gratuity based on something different than what you're seeing here in the product today, like how can we make that a customization? And then in John's case, like the early morning fee that just got automatically calculated to base rate, we can throw that into the driver payout as well, right? Like a feature upgrade could be when you go and close the trip, or when you do like the driver payout, day driver payout, there can be like an automated section that this driver is going to receive the full early morning fee for the driver payout. So I think that's a little bit where what I'm understanding, I guess, Sean and John, is like more of this pass-through ability, because the main problem is to keep driver payouts automated. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's a little, but that would solve the problem for having to back it out. I wouldn't be as concerned about having, for, in
There
this
you go.
case,
Yeah.
For the other stuff that we talked about earlier, as far as airport fees, that's something that we would want to see itemized, because it's not going to raise questions as to, well, why am I having to explain to them why this is sitting in a base rate? Again,
Exactly.
And we're all unique here, so it doesn't mean my needs are more important. It's just a consideration.
Yep. No, I mean, it's perfect. I think it makes sense, right? That your driver settings, right now, this is the first version of them, right? And then an improvement of driver payout can be like enable like pass through of like automate, like anything that's dynamic pricing, right? Then can be passed through to driver payouts. So like we could figure that out together on like how we would make that build and make sure it works for you guys, so that then anything that's auto included in the base rate for the customer, like as we believe is the best way to do it, right? It doesn't affect the way that you and your drivers, what's best for you and your drivers as stakeholders. Because I think each stakeholder has a different perspective for the right reason in this process of payments and payouts and base rates. So yeah, I think that's a good learning, and I'll put that to Tyler and the team, and we'll reach out to John and Sean specifically. And of course, if there's anyone else that's on the webinar, that's listening to the webinar, that's interested about this hot topic of automating certain payout and add-on items to drivers, yeah, reach out to us as we continue to think about this. So thanks, Sean, for bringing it up and everybody's input. Cool. Yeah. Oof, that was fun. I don't know how we got there. I lost our train of thought, but that was really good. We got 5 minutes left. Anybody have anything else before I jump into some stuff?
Hey, this is Ken in Atlanta, Georgia, White Glove Transportation Services.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, how do I go, like if I charge someone initially for a trip and I have to add a charge, say they go over time and I have to go back and add additional charge. Can I do that without adding another, I guess, how did I resolve that? I think I went in and created another ticket or something.
Yep. So yeah, this is a concept that, we're trying to improve on our end, just because we want this to be easier to be understood, Ken. So thanks for bringing this up. My response to you for now is that what I try to explain, and let me know if I lose us, is that in Moovs, everything is set up as a reservation and then trips. And a reservation doesn't exist without its trips. So like you can have 50 trips to one reservation, right? And the idea is that every trip, Ken, is looked at individually in terms of pricing, but then reservation is just an accumulation of all of its trips. So like in an example where we have 9 trips here, so this is like pretty complex, the total price and amount due is just like, imagine a sum of trips amount and trips amount due. So another way of seeing this, I always like to go is to the price summary. So the price summary is what the customer sees, and another way for you as an operator to see like what's going on. So you see each trip has a subtotal, and each trip subtotal is made up of all the different line items of the trips, base rate, tax, booking fee, and test in this example. And all of those added up for all of us will always be a total amount. And I always like to think of this as like, this is the total amount that's billable, right? So the billable amount can always change only based on if there's services rendered or not rendered, additional fees added or taken away. So you always can adjust this total billable amount to always inform a customer like, hey, you should have paid us this amount or you owe us this amount by adjusting the trip amounts. Does that make sense so far, Ken?
Mm-hmm.
And so then what you'll want to do is to adjust, like in your case, when there's an overage, it's a perfect example of a workflow. I recommend, because again, operators like to do this different ways. You can have a couple ways of doing this. So let's say in this case, if it's a one-way, right? And you have an other field, you can add another other field if you wanted to, if you want your customer to be, overage, right? And you can add the overage here and they're going to see it, right? Or if you wanted to, you can just change the base rate to 650, right? And then it's just going to be inclusive in the base rate, right? One thing to remember, right? And this is something that's very detailed but important, is always, always, always use this section down here to like understand what you're doing and how it impacts the total, because Moovs will calculate off the base rate certain things. So as you can see, when I added the 150 to the base rate, right, you'll see like tax, booking fee, or not tax, if tax was percentage, and anything percentage calculates off base rate. Oops. So if you change the base rate, it's going to change these amounts. So imagine if you had like driver gratuity, right, and you have it at 20%, and you see here it's at 100. If I change this to 650, now everything increases. So the total amount increases by much more than the 150, but maybe like that's what I would do, because an overage should be, in my opinion, in my service area, in my business, gratuity and tax and booking fee should be applied to that 150. Now, if you don't want that, that's totally fine as well, is we can take this back down to 500, right? And then we would adjust having that other field and make the overage 150. And then you'll see the difference between how that overage could be applied. Does that make sense, Ken?
And you're doing this with these trips being, I said these trips, with the trip already have been charged. So you're still manipulating it. Okay.
Exactly. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to charge this reservation. I'm not going to actually charge a card, right? So I'm just going to use a different payment method, same concept, right? Let's just say they paid check, right? I'm going to charge the whole reservation. Is that what you did, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Perfect. Now, this part I'll explain, and this one part I'll be honest, I don't love about Moovs, but we're going to be improving this soon because it's confusing, is that you notice I just charged $4,905, right? So now the amount due is 0, right? But on the way that Moovs applies the charge is by trip, because again, everything's trip based. Like a reservation doesn't have amount due, each trip does. So if you click into every single trip in the money tab, Ken, and everybody here, you're going to be like, wait, this was more than 545, right? Like, why is this 545, right? The idea is that each trip had an amount due. So we apply that separately so that then the reservations amount due can be 0. So you'll see here, for example, if I open up the price summary again, where the price summary will show the whole charge, right? So the customer paid $4,905, but then in your Moovs product, of course, you're going to see it broken down by trip, because in our reality, right, like our trips were paid for as a total charge. And then in your case, Ken, when you update any of these trips, so if you have 1 or 10 trips, you'll update the pricing like we said. Let's just say we do it this way, $650 update price, right? And then you'll see, look, now there's a new amount due, and then the total price increased, and then we can now charge reservation, and then the charge will then process and then be applied to that trip that has an amount due.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, I'm gonna have to go back and play with it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then also, reach out to us on the Moovs chat if you have any questions. We can take a look at it together.
Okay.
Man, while we're on this topic, I actually got a question for you. So I got like a client that like books for her daughter, every Tuesday. And so I feel like I try to go inside like Moves app and like just try to copy, like duplicate the trip. What I would want is to be a separate trip for that separate date instead of like all it to run like all together. One thing I did notice was like last time I did try to do that, it like just when I duplicated the trip, it was like a return, like pick up, drop off. It just like assigned it to a date that she had like previously used. So like it created like 4 trips. 2 of them were done obviously because it was already like prior, and like the 2, were from like for today or like tomorrow. So then it created like a new amount date, amount due, and then it gave like the total price. I feel like now she's looking at it like, oh my gosh, like I'm spending like $700, for 4 trips, and these 2 trips are like $350. You know what I mean? So like now she gets a new invoice that has the new update, like, hey, $700 for 4 trips, even though 2 trips are already done. Now 2 trips are due. You know what I mean? So I don't know what the best solution is for that. Like, do you have anything that like we could do in the Moves app to duplicate a trip from like the same exact location, same exact drop off location, but not show the previous balance?
Yeah. So what you're saying, which is a ticket that we have, and let me know if this makes sense, is instead of duplicating trips and building a reservation out, we would just duplicate a reservation. So imagine here, right? The idea would be like right click, right? Or like a menu icon, duplicate reservation.
Or just open that up. So what I do is I just like when I want to duplicate it, I just opened it and then hit duplicate, and then it duplicated both of the trips from the same exact location to the same exact drop off location. It was actually for the same times, but it showed the previous balances.
Exactly. So that's what I think we can, like, that's something we have as a ticket, as just somewhere here in reservations, just have an easier way to duplicate the reservation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a good one.
I didn't know if I was doing it wrong. I was like, because it kept showing up like the amount due, like the previous amount dues. And I'm like, I don't want to send this like invoice to her showing like $700. Now she knows, like, I think it makes a big difference when they see that amount, like, oh my, I spent 4 trips, $700, but I don't think
psychologically,
for sure. And see, like that, the point, because obviously the point of duplicate trip, right, is the idea of like you're working with someone who the billing cycle is 30 days or 14 days, right? So then it keeps billing a much easier. But in your case, you want to bill separately. So then like you would want to duplicate the reservation, which makes perfect sense.
Right, for that date, whatever, you know what I mean? So, and then I while I'm on here, I want to thank you for, the trip notes, the editing of the trip notes. So like when you go and press enter and like the way you put it in, it shows up the exact same way. And then copy trip details. Thank you so much. Because
Yeah,
that really
for
helps,
sure.
like copying into like a calendar and stuff like that. It's so much easier, I feel like. So I want to
Yeah.
feel that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And yeah, I think everybody here, if you haven't seen these new features that were requested and built, we now have a feature with all your trips, any trip, you can copy the trip details here, and then it'll paste. So it makes it easier to send to an affiliate, a passenger, a driver, an IO, a farm out, add it to your calendar if you're creating calendar invites, whatever that may be. A nice, easy way to just get the trip details in a text format. And then also a minor fix that was, it was important to fix that Farhan pointed out was before in our trip notes, they wouldn't save in this format. So now our trip notes save in format for your customers and your internal system. So yeah, great points, Farhan. And yeah,
We need vehicle type too in that trip too. That copy of the
oh,
trip,
here,
put the vehicle type.
vehicle type. Yeah, like the vehicle. Yep, that's a good call out.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
And sometimes I feel like the trip notes and the driver notes are not copying. So we might want to look at that just to, it does not copy sometimes, like the driver notes or like the trip notes when we do that.
Okay.
So I feel like, and then one other thing is like, I've had like passengers request changes. And now, does those changes automatically apply, or do we have to accept them or manually change them?
Yep. So let me just quickly show everyone this feature. It's built on purpose this way because changes are very complex. And so far on like what you see, here's the customer journey, right? Like, and I recommend everyone, right? Personally, I like workflows where else you're just going to forget things. So what's nice about this workflow is the customer calls, texts, or whatever, I need to make a change. And you're like, look, here's the link, right? So to give them their link, you just go here and click send reservation, right? And then you say, just go to your trip. And if they have multiple trips, they can click on their trip, right? So in this case, if it was, let's just see this one.
So like you said, make sure you copy those notes, put them in your internal notes that way, because if the customer changes it and you put something in there, they're going to say, oh, I didn't see that. Remember?
Right. And so sometimes I get like trip requests, and then what happens is like they'll change the notes. So like I feel like sometimes I'm either trying to go back in there and try to verify like it's been updated or not to their new, updates of like maybe their timing or their location of pickup or something. So sometimes I feel like I'm trying to verify. I feel like sometimes there should be like a confirm button or something like on the reservation, just so that way you're like, hey, you know what? Yes, I accept these terms and just change it. Change the whole reservation.
Exactly. And that's something we're thinking about. But remember, the nice thing about sending your customers here, right, is it does a lot of the heavy work for you guys, because they'll come in, they'll pick the trip they want to, like, let's say on trip 4, they need to change the pickup date and time, right? So they'll come in here and they'll have the ability to do that. So let's say they can change it to the 24th at 15 p.m., right? Okay, and look, they'll click request changes, and it's very clear, right, that it's a request. So it says here, your request has been sent. You will hear back if your changes are approved, right? And then it's important to know that you, the operator, and the booking contact email receive an email that says, here were the trip before, here's the trip after. So that's awesome, to your point, in this, like, where is the trip's history? Because now you have an email that shows where it was and where it could be. And then you can make that update. And then now you have like what I like to call the snake trail of, like, if they keep making updates, you can always kind of go back to the email that sends based on this like request for change. Now, to your point, like, they put a request for change that you want to approve, you do have to manually go into Moovs, because we don't know, for example, if someone requests like 20 changes, right? Is it this one that you're going to approve, this one? No. But for the most part, you're right. It is like just an accept. So it is something we're thinking about.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. All right. So we're a bit over time, but I just wanted to give everyone a quick sneak peek of something that the team has been working on. And we're really excited about this one for our operators. who have requested this. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. So give me 1 sec. I should have had it up. Here it is. All right, so it's loading up now. So this is a updated feature for our terms and conditions acceptance, and we're adding an improved workflow that is going to enable operators to accept signatures. So let's take a look. So we're adding here where we have require customer consent to book. We're going to have a new checkbox, require customer signature. Okay. So you're going to turn this on, right? Toggle it on. And then now customer will be required to sign when agreeing to terms and conditions, and cancellation policy is now enabled. Now we're going to see what this looks like in Moovs. I'm just going to fast forward. So here, when a customer now gets to this page and they click the I agree, this modal now comes up that now has your terms and conditions on this page. And what we're going to do is we're going to require the customer to read through the terms and conditions, right? As you can see, they cannot sign or type their name until they scroll through. And they're going to scroll through the terms and conditions, right? This is the mobile, desktop, until they get to the end. Once they start typing their name, then there's going to be a digital signature that's created for their name. And then as soon as they've completed, they're going to click sign electronically. And then that way their reservation will then be confirmed. And the last part of this is going to be, well, how do you know? Well, this is amazing. You now have an option for any reservation that gets signed and confirmed by the contact. You have a signed terms and conditions page. So you can download it and you can see all this important information for you to be able to use for customers when booking quotes and reservations, as you can see here.
I like that feature. Really nice.
Thanks, Warren. Anybody have any thoughts or feedbacks on this? Any quick responses?
That'll certainly help chargebacks. I said that will certainly help with chargebacks.
Yeah, that, and then also just like, I'm sure how often it happens with operators, like when customers like, oh, I didn't know you had late fees, or I didn't know this was a cancellation policy. And it's like, you signed a document, you know, like what else could we say? What else can we do? Awesome. Awesome, guys. Well, I think every webinar becomes my favorite webinar because I really did enjoy today's session. Thanks, Jose. We appreciate it. We'll let the team know. And yeah, so thanks again, everyone. We'll see you again in a few weeks. Appreciate you taking the time and joining. We'll be posting the webinar on YouTube, and have a wonderful rest of your day. See you, everybody.
All right. Thank you.